People will look at a person and make a snap judgment about what they can do, who they are, where their place is. I've seen it happening in some races like, wait, what? You've run 20 marathons?
Welcome to Running is Cheaper Than Therapy podcast. I am your host, Dr. Weta L. Brown. I inspire and promote movement. I explain how running adds to life from a mental wholeness aspect, how obstacles can be overcome in life to make it to your finish line. Welcome to Running is Cheaper Than Therapy, episode 83. Today, I have one of my sorors who also attended an HBCU, Howard University. She is a mathematician. She's been teaching for 25 years. She's taught in the USA, Ethiopia, Thailand. Shauna Anderson has completed all 6 world major marathons and a marathon on all 7 continents. She did her first ever triathlon with 4 days of training. She's adventurous and spontaneous. She's visited 47 countries. Her motto in life is a quote by Eric Thomas: "When you die, die on E. Leave no dream left behind. Leave no opportunity behind. Accomplish everything you can." And she lives her life in that manner. So please welcome Shauna Anderson to the show. Thanks for joining me today.
Thanks for having me.
Okay, so why did you initially started running? What made you put on your shoes and hit the road there?
So I was working in Alaska as an engineering intern.
Okay, really? Okay.
My degree is in mechanical engineering. And one of the other interns said, "Hey, do you want to go for a run? And Alaska is so beautiful." This was in Anchorage. And I was like, "Sure, we'll go for a run. How long is it going to be?" He's like, "Oh, just a couple miles." It ended up being like 5 miles. I was so annoyed with him when we got back, but I didn't know where I was going, so I had to keep going.
Mm-hmm. So you just ran 5 miles? Had you run before?
It was ridiculous. I think it was 5 miles in the end. I'm telling you, I was so annoyed with him, but that was about 30 years ago. So I was in a different shape back then, right? I ran the 5 miles. And so after that experience, I decided I wanted to start running on a regular basis. I was at Howard University undergrad. I just started running on the mall and things like that. It became a habit. And then in 1995, when I was a student in Cambridge, Massachusetts, I actually, quite frankly, was going through a breakup. And I saw a message saying, "Would you like to run a marathon?" And that started my training, something that was really negative. I was just getting all that negative energy out by doing training runs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's therapeutic.
Right, exactly. Started doing my training runs, ran all through the winter in Boston and Cambridge. And so that's how I ran my first marathon, actually.
Okay. So you initially started, was that 1994? Is that correct, when you first started running?
Yes, I was in Alaska in the summers of 89, 90, and 91. I did my first 5K in 1994. And then I did my first marathon in 1996.
So how did that progression go? Like from the 5K to the marathon? Or was it just like, I'm doing a marathon after you saw that message? I'm just going to do it.
After I saw that message, I was not even thinking about a marathon, not at all. But then I saw that message. I was reading a magazine one day and it says, "How would you like to run a marathon?" Okay, I'm doing that. So I had sort of progressed running in DC, like I said, at Howard University on the National Mall. I was increasing my mileage, but the marathon was a big step. So in 2 years, went from the 5K to the marathon.
So did you train with the group? Did you have a coach, or did you kind of pick an online program?
So the advertisement I had seen was for this Jeff Galloway program. So that's the first program I used. And there were a group of people. It was like the Jeff Galloway Boston group. And I joined that group, and I didn't know any of the people there. Mm-hmm. I was the only Black person in the group, but we trained all winter and prepared ourselves for the marathon. And the reason that group was formed was that was going to be the 100th running of the Boston Marathon.
Okay.
And it was the first time they were going to have lottery entries for people who hadn't qualified.
Oh, okay. That was the first time they did charity and all.
So I was not familiar with it at all. So I didn't know anything about charity, but it was the only time they were doing a lottery where you didn't have to raise money.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yes. The one and only time, because it was the 100th running of the Boston Marathon.
Oh, okay. The Boston was your first marathon then?
Right, exactly.
That's pretty awesome. So tell me about your first marathon, the experience.
So I did the lottery, like I said, for the Boston Marathon. And fortunately, I was living there at the time. And so I was able to run the hills and stuff. Like the people who lived there, they knew the course. I was only living there for 1 year. I was in graduate school at Harvard. And my program was just 10 months. So it just happened to be at that one time when I was living there that this chance came up. And quite frankly, I went to the expo with my friends. I didn't get a number for the Boston Marathon. So I went with my friends and I was like, okay, I wasn't lucky. I didn't get a number. And I didn't know anything about bandits. I didn't know anything like that. So I went with my friends. We went to the expo. They got their bibs. And I said, I'll watch your bibs. They had to go to the restroom at the end. And I said, took care of it. I'll watch the bibs. I'll watch all your stuff. And there was a man standing there. He's like, are you running? I was like, no, I didn't get a number. I'm going to run in Vermont in 3 weeks. And he was like, I'm injured. Do you want my number? What? So I was able to run it then, but then I had to go back again in future years and run it for charity.
Okay. So you run Boston twice.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. I think I remember seeing pictures of you when they had a meetup from the National Black Marathon Association.
Yes, yeah. Exactly. I was there. Oh my goodness. I had hair then, but I was there.
Yeah. How many other marathons have you run?
I have done a total of 20 full marathons. So I went to Rio de Janeiro to run a half marathon, and I met someone there named T.
I know T.
Oh, you know
I met her in Berlin, yes. When I did. Yeah.
Oh, goodness. I was with T in Berlin, but we were staying in different. In fact, she came and stayed in my hotel room. Oh, my goodness. That's so funny. So I met T for the first time in Rio de Janeiro, I think in 2012, 2013. And you know how T is. A year later, she was like, hey, sis, I'm going to Antarctica to run this marathon. I was like, what? She was like, you should come with me. So me, T, Abby, I was like, I'm not coming to Antarctica. Anyway, looked into it, ended up running Antarctica in 2014. And then after I ran Antarctica, I decided that I was going to do the 7 continents.
Okay.
Yeah, so I've run the 7 continents, and then like in Berlin and Boston and London.
So you've done all the majors too?
Yes.
Okay. You've done 7 continents and all the majors. I want to do all the majors.
Okay.
But I don't know if I want to do Antarctica. So that's the only thing about the 7. Because I heard it's very expensive, and then it's hard to get there, and then the weather conditions. And most people add like at least 2-3 hours to their time just because the conditions.
Right. Well, I will say that. So there are a couple different, or maybe even 3 outfits that you can choose. And so I went with an outfit that was less expensive. Mm-hmm. Like I think they were like up to like, I don't know, $18,000. The outfit I went with 8 years ago was about half that price.
Okay.
And you flew to Antarctica. You don't take the boat down there.
Okay.
This outfit also stages a marathon in South America during the same trip. So you can get 2 continents for one.
Okay.
Yeah.
So tell me about your favorite marathon out of all the ones you've done.
My favorite. Well, I will have to say my favorite is the Paris Marathon. I think then I was living in Thailand at the time, and I was doing spring in Paris. Yeah. I went there for spring break. So it was probably my favorite race. I think I felt I was in the best shape when I did the race in Paris, and that was in 2002. So I did the first marathon in 1996, and then it took 6 years for me to do another one. Maybe it was 2001, 5 years later. And then I would say that the one after that in terms of just the overall trip being my favorite was the marathon I did in New Zealand.
Okay.
Because I ended up staying there for 5.5 more weeks in New Zealand, and it was unbelievable.
So tell me about your least favorite or your worst marathon and why.
Okay. You know what? I will have to say there are a couple. The rock and roll marathon in San Diego. Mm-hmm. so many hills, and I live in Chicago. Like the mile marker for mile 20 was at the top of a hill. I mean, it was just, I mean, no indictment on them, but all those hills, I was not prepared for that. That was really, really hard for me. And then I'll have to say my last continent was in Kenya. Obviously, I was happy to be in Kenya, and it was with the Masai Mara. But the problem was it was at 6,000 feet.
6,000 feet?
Yes. It was at altitude. And I have asthma. It was very, very difficult. And so I was being passed by Kenyans, obviously.
Of course. Of course.
Kenyans were lapping me on that race. But and it was a double loop. And so when I finished the first loop, oh my goodness, I was like, I have to do this again. It was very difficult. And in the end, the race director, I was the last person to finish. The race director actually, I don't drink alcohol, but he bought me, like at the gathering when we were talking about the race, he actually bought me a Fanta. He was like, I just have to give the award for perseverance. Every time I saw her, she was smiling. I know it was a struggle, but Shauna Anderson, it was so nice.
Oh, that's nice.
I have a picture of the Maasai warriors were all there. And the race director convinced them to take a picture with me. So there's a picture of me at the finish line with like 8 Maasai warriors dressed as warriors.
Oh, nice.
Unbelievable. Yes.
Tell me about the Antarctica race, though, as far as your experience.
Okay. We flew into Chile. So the company with which I went to Antarctica, you stay in Punta Serenas, Chile, which is like the southernmost tip of South America. Mm-hmm. And then you fly to Antarctica. I get there on a Saturday, and we're going to be there a week. And we don't know which day the marathon's going to be. They said it could be any time in this week. And the reason is, like you alluded to earlier, because of weather. Like a storm could roll in. And the year before, a storm rolled in, and they didn't get to finish the marathon.
Wow. What part of the year is it?
So it's in end of January, beginning of February, which is their summertime. And so the temperature when we were there was about 35 degrees, but with the wind, it was about 25.
That's summer weather for them?
That's summer in Antarctica, yes.
Okay. Okay.
I actually was I live in Chicago, and that was the year we had the polar vortex. So in Chicago, it was like 50 degrees below at some point without the wind. It was actually warmer in Antarctica than it was in Chicago when I went.
That's crazy.
Right.
That's crazy. I missed the polar vortex. I was in Utah, and it was 40 degrees.
Oh, my goodness.
Skiing.
That's right. We're there in Antarctica. I get there on Saturday morning. I meet T and Abby. We go to lunch. And they had said, we're talking to the pilots, and we're listening to the weather. So we could go to Antarctica at any time, just be prepared. We go to lunch that Saturday. I got into the hotel at like 9:30. We go to lunch that Saturday. We come back at like, 5 o'clock. It says, we go to Antarctica tonight. I said, what? I even have a picture of it. So then they said, dinner at 7, debriefing at 9, leave for the airport at 11:30 p.m. Fly overnight for like 4 or 5 hours, land, run the race in Antarctica. You got 8 hours to finish. Then we're getting on a plane and coming back.
Coming right back. Wow.
Yes.
So you had to sleep on the plane, basically.
And now it's a little different. People have tents and they stay in Antarctica overnight. But when I did it, they didn't do that. So we flew in, and Antarctica is, and you may know this, so I apologize if you do, but anything you bring in, you have to bring out. When we had to go to the restroom, we had to put it in like barrels. They had to take it back out. Yeah, it was a very interesting experience. So when the sun was coming up, that's when the race started. Mm-hmm. And on the course, mud, ice, snow, boulders, gravel. I mean, it was everything. I ended up having to trash the shoes afterwards. Mm. Yeah, it was. And you're right. They're like, it'll probably add 2 to 3 hours to your time. So I think that ended up being over 7 hours for me. Mm-hmm. Wow. The race in Antarctica.
Would you do it again?
Actually, I was sort of thinking about 7 continents halves.
Okay.
I mean, it's like you said, though, it's expensive. So I have to really give that some thought because there are many other places I want to visit.
I know. You seem like you have an adventurous spirit. You've raced everywhere and you've taught in Ethiopia, Bangkok. Where did you get this free spirit? Because some people are scared to leave their neighborhood.
My mom has this running joke. The joke that my mom tells people is, they gave me the wrong baby because I am not.
I think me and my mother too, because I went home one year from college and I didn't want to go home. We should go to an island or something for the holiday. She like, I'm too old to travel. That's when you travel. We're not related.
Right. My mom was like, who is this? When I was living in Alaska, like we'd like go up these mountain passes and she would be freaking out. Are there bear here? Are there moose? And I'm excited like a kid. So I grew up from, I'm not ashamed to say, from very humble backgrounds. And so I would only be able to dream about places by reading about them in books. Mm-hmm. You know, reading about Japan when I was a kid, or reading about Egypt, or, you know, Timbuktu or something like that when I was a child, and never imagining that I would be able to go to all of the continents and all these places, you know, as an adult. And it's sort of like also, you know, being a U.S. citizen and growing up here, I think a lot of times people get the impression USA is number one and why do you need to go someplace else? And that's not my attitude. My attitude is I'm a global citizen, right? Mm-hmm. And I want of other people in the world. And it's sort of like this childlike wonderment I have about all these places. And I just want to lay my eyes on as many places as possible. And I really want to live my life like it's golden. And that's what I'm doing. So when I was driving on that road in New Zealand and I saw a sign, I had made a promise to my mother, Mom, I will never bungee jump. I promise I'll never bungee jump. I was in Zimbabwe and I did zip lining. No, I'm not going to bungee jump. But when I saw a sign, just by chance, I was driving from Queenstown to Dunedin, I think. And there was a sign that said, welcome to the Kararu Bridge, the site of the first ever bungee jump. I was like, oh, let me just go see it.
Yeah, it might be interesting. Yeah.
Right, it might be interesting to just see. Hour and a half later, I was on the ledge.
Wow. And what did your mother say?
Oh, my goodness. First of all, I was terrified of telling my mother. That was the worst part. I mean, well, the jump itself was pretty scary. But I was like, what am I going to tell my mother? I had already survived it, but I was still worried about what I was going to tell my mother. But this is what got me. The guy said at the place, now, of course, it's a marketing technique, but he says, here's the thing. I don't want you to be 3 or 4 hours down the road saying I had the chance to do it and I didn't do it. Mm-hmm. And that's what got me. So then you sign these papers, and one of the papers says toe tag. They consider that to be a joke. Like you have to sign it and it says your toe tag. And I had to put my name down. And then, like I said, I have a degree in mechanical engineering. So I went over there. I was talking to the people who were like conducting the jump. I was like, has anybody ever had any accidents here? Show me how this works again. They show me how they wrap it around your ankles. And you know, you're tight as your ankles and you're upside down in this place. Unbelievable. I felt like electricity was going through my body when I finished that.
Really? I'm an adventurous. I like zip line. I don't like drops, like even roller coasters. But that dropping upside down, I think I just would vomit.
But then when you go down, yeah, it's head first going towards water. And then they're like, do you want to stretch? Do you want to touch the water? And I was like, yeah. Because they make the rubber band. It's obviously bigger than it, but it's like a rubber band. The tension in the rubber band, depending on whether you want to touch the water, they weigh you like 3 times. I mean, there's a lot of science that goes into it.
Well, that's good to know.
And then they said, stretch like Superman, but I forgot to stretch because I was laughing and screaming so much. So I missed touching the water. And then they don't reel you back up. They lower you into a raft.
Okay.
In the water. Yeah.
Yeah, that's probably better. You would do it again, I assume. You would enjoy the experience.
So unbelievable.
So you had majored in engineering, but you're a math teacher. How did you make that transition? I know it's a lot of math and engineering. When
I was an undergrad, I took a lot of extra math classes, and one of my professors, as I told you, come from humble backgrounds, and I had an engineering scholarship, but I needed some extra money, and so I was telling my calculus professor, I was like, oh man, I need a job. He's like, do you really need a job? I said, I do. And his wife ran the Center for Academic Reinforcement at Howard. So it's a tutoring center that people will come in and get help. So he got me a job my freshman year of tutoring fellow students at Howard. And I had that job the entire time I was there. And I got a lot of satisfaction out of helping people understand math.
Which is a gift because everybody can't teach math.
I would agree that, yes, some people are not, they understand it, but they aren't able to convey the information. And also I have some, like one of my best friends, I met her in the math program, and she was like, I just don't have the patience. Because if they don't get it, I'm like, what about, I said it. What? And so you can't have that attitude as a teacher.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, to figure out a way to make them understand if they don't understand it the first time, you know?
Mm-hmm.
I was sitting in a graduate mechanical engineering course called Continuum Mechanics.
Mm-hmm.
And I was sitting there and the guy was talking, I think about tensors. And I was like, why am I here? I'm really not interested in this. I thought I wanted to be an engineering professor, but in that moment, I decided that I wanted to become a high school math teacher. And so I left the program and I ended up going to the ed school at Harvard and getting my master's in education. And so that's how I became a math teacher. And I just finished my 25th year.
Okay. So you enjoy it, obviously.
Oh, yes. I really enjoy it a lot. Especially at times like this, you know, because I have the summers off. I have to work really, really hard while I'm teaching, especially in the last 3 years.
Mm-hmm. Brad, with the COVID, yeah, I'm sure, yeah.
But to have the summers off and be able to have the time to go and travel and see the world the way that I want to, it's definitely worth it. And I'm not the corporate type. I'm just not, that's not my jam.
Mine either. In season 5, we will continue the segment Ask the Doc. If you have any questions related to musculoskeletal health, please email me, send me a message via social media, or click on my website and leave an audio message. Select messages will be answered on the segment. You excel in places that can be intimidating, whether it be engineering or going to Harvard, or when you said you started running, you were the only Black person, only plus size person, but you always felt comfortable. Where did you get that confidence in yourself to be comfortable?
Oh, you're so good at this. So I will say when I was in public school in Gary, Indiana is where I grew up. And I would go to these math competitions. And, you know, I don't mind just being honest with people. When I saw the other people walk in the room, like there was a military academy that we used to go against, and there would be people who did not look like me. When they would walk in the room, I have to tell you, I immediately felt defeated. Mm-hmm. I felt like I'm going to lose because, and even though I had all my math teachers in high school were Black and in middle school were Black, for some reason I had just been told that we did not excel as much, you know, growing up, or we aren't engineers. We don't do well in math, even though I was like in a gifted and talented program. So anyway, I had this sense already that I was defeated. But then I have to say, going to Howard University, you know, historically Black college and university, people would have the impression that you're not working as hard or it's an easier. But I would tell you, the engineering school was in the valley, along with like physics and the medical school there. Like we were in Death Valley. We were down there. Getting our behinds kicked. I was not hanging out up on the yard. I mean, I'm sure that people did that, but I wasn't. I was down there in engineering school, and they were using the same textbooks as other schools. But I also were able to see people like me and learn about the history of Black people in math and science and other areas. And so then that built up my confidence, right? It was at that time that, quite frankly, I started wearing my hair naturally. I just slowly but surely started gaining my confidence. And now I walk into a room, I can do this. Like I teach at a private school. I'm the only Black person who teaches math here for the 25 years I've been teaching, other than when I was in Ethiopia and I was teaching with Ethiopians. So I have to be confident, and the parent body with whom I work, or, you know, whose children I teach, are also people that are confident in their work. So I have to be confident in mine, right? So that they understand that your child is being taught by a qualified math teacher.
Okay. I read one of your quotes in an article. I somehow decided to think big, determine my own destiny, take a breath, and be fearless in realizing my dreams.
Yes, absolutely. As I was sort of alluding to before, there are so many times that people will place Black people in a box, right? They have these stereotypical notions about what I can and cannot do. And I'm not, please understand, I'm not angry. I'm not always looking for issues of racism. This is not how I roll because I'm really happy by nature. But I've decided that nobody, as much as I can help it, will tell me what I can do and where I can go and where I can visit. And why can't I go to some of these really remote places by myself? I mean, of course, I'm going to be careful. And you have to do that, especially in the United States. A person looking like me driving on my own in certain areas, going running in the morning. But it's sort of like it's my resistance, right? Like I am going to, as much as I can, carefully go where I want to go. I'm a citizen of the world. You can't tell me what I can do and what I can't do. So that's kind of why I say I just take a deep breath. Like, okay, I'm doing this. Let me just take a deep breath and then just go, because it's allowed me to live a fantastic life, right? I'm having no regrets. I don't want to have any regrets when it's over,
I know.
right?
I understand.
Why not?
Why not? All but bungee jumping, I agree with you.
No jumping out of airplanes. That's the one thing I haven't done.
I haven't done that either. And it's a clause in my disability that I can't. Just if I die, I'm good. But if I'm disabled, I'll get my money. So I wouldn't do that. I think bungee jumping might be a clause in there too. I think, yeah. It's amazing to me how you talk about Howard and how it instills. I went to historically Black college and university, FAMU, and I feel going there changed my life too. I mean, I think maybe, I don't know where I got this adventurous bug either, because my dad was in the army, so maybe he was, but I just not really got that from him, just from talking to him growing up. So I never got that he was adventurous. He was in the army. I just figured he just went to the army. Right.
So, whether you want to go or not, you're going to these places, right?
Yeah, I feel like I just want to go to the army. But yeah, I don't know. In FAMU, it's opened kind of the world for me. Just my contacts and people I know. And I was in Spain.
Nice. What part?
Madrid. I meet random people who went to my college. It's just interesting. We're everywhere.
Yeah. Exactly. I mean, HBCUs have a place. Definitely, right?
Yes, they do. Indeed. I love mine. I'm sure you love yours too.
Yes, I do.
I like Howard too, but I'm biased from my school. But
right. I know you guys had the band, and then is it green and orange with the great
orange and green?
Right, exactly. Yes, I know FAMU, girl.
So I was reading also about you've done triathlons, correctly? Because it said you train 4 days. Okay,
sure. Let me explain. Okay. I have some running friends, and they were doing this special program in the summer. But usually I can't do things in the summer because I'm traveling. That's what I mean. I have the summers off. I'm out of Chicago. So I came back at the end of August, and they said, hey, Shauna, come out with us on Monday. We want to show you the special program we were doing. And so I went on Monday. I did the training program. It was great. And then I did a 4-miler after. So then she says, hey, tomorrow, come swimming. We've been swimming in the lake all summer because we're doing this triathlon. So I just come in, you have a swimsuit. I was like, yeah. I hadn't been in Lake Michigan literally in like 35 years.
Okay, really? Okay. But you knew how to swim. You knew.
I took swimming lessons 3 or 4 years ago, terrified of the deep water, but my swimming coach with private lessons got me over the terror of the deep water. So, but the problem is, I can run, marathon, half marathon, but swimming, my breathing, I don't relax, and so I can't breathe.
Yeah. It's so hard. Yes.
So hard. But I went out, and so I started swimming a little bit, and the coach was like, oh, you should go over there with the intermediate people. I'm like, no. I'm okay right here where I can stand up, and then I can go to the shore if I need to. So anyway, that was on Tuesday. So at the end of the lesson, they were like, okay, everybody, you guys are ready for the triathlon on Saturday? And of course, I'm not listening because I'm not doing the triathlon on
Saturday. You're like, yeah.
I don't even know what you guys are talking about. They said, Shauna, come back on Thursday. I was like, okay, yeah, it's almost the end of the season. I'll come back. This is fun, So I went back on Thursday, and in the Thursday session, they simulated the triathlon.
Okay.
So that was the lesson. So I said, I'm here. I'll just do this. So they were doing it 3 times. And it was like a rectangle, like you go perpendicular to the shore, swim, then swim parallel to the shore, and then come back. And it was a 1/4 mile swim.
Okay.
They did it 3 times. The second 2 times, I have to tell you, I got on my back. I was like, I'm doing backstroke because I can breathe.
Mm-hmm.
So I did backstroke. And at the end, they were like, Shauna, you should sign up. I was like, the doggone thing is on Saturday. They were like, it's a 1/4 mile swim. It's a 6-mile bike ride. And it's a 1.5 mile run. You can do that, right? So I said, I don't even have a bike. They said, we have a divvy division, where you can rent those bikes. So anyway, I signed up. And the coach has said, Shauna, listen, this is a super sprint. They make it in the part of the lake that's very shallow. Like if you need to stand up, you can stand up.
You stand up, yeah.
Girl, we got out there on Saturday. They had changed the course to 15 feet of water. You couldn't stand up.
Oh, wow. Okay. But you did it.
I did it.
So tell me about the race, though.
I did. Okay. So we're all out there. The guy says, welcome to the swim portion of the race. And he said, did you hear me? I said swim. The water is the deepest it's ever been. So people started panicking. I was with a Black group of people. You know how we do, got in the circle, started praying, right? And we're like, what are we going to do? Because you can't stand up. They had been training the whole time in the lake where you could stand up.
In the shallow, yeah.
Shallow, right? So anyway, thankfully I had done the backstroke. So, and they had people out there and they're like, listen, if anybody needs to rest, you can rest. They had lots of canoes. This is the first time for a lot of people. They're like, if you can get over to a paddleboard, you can rest, but they can't help you. So I went on my back and there were people out there like saying, I don't think you're strong enough for lifeguards. You should go back. You should do this. And so I just didn't even go near them. I just started flailing my arms, backstroking really fast.
You're like, I'm going to make it. I'm going to make it.
So they wouldn't send me back. And I made it. I cannot believe I did that. I cannot believe I did it. One time I was on my back so I couldn't see. And some of the lifeguards like, come back. You're going to.
You were going off course?
You're going to Michigan. Come back. So they helped me 2 times. I stopped, and one woman who was in my group, we stopped at the same place. She's like, we're doing it, Shauna. I was like, I know, Sandra, we're doing it. Finally did it. The coach was so happy. Go, Shauna, get on the bike. Because sadly, some of the people in our group, they weren't able to do the race. Mm-hmm. And so then they were like, how you going to come on a Tuesday?
And do a race on a Saturday.
Do a race on Saturday that you didn't even train for. But you know what? I've never DNF'd in a race. Mm-hmm. There's no shame in it, but I've never done that. I'm like, if I put it out there, I'm going to do it. So I have to tell you, on that beach before I got in that water, I had to have a talk with myself. I was like, listen, if you get in this water, you need to finish this race. But also, your mama going to be mad if you drown. So figure it out. So I was, girl, backstroking like it was like my life depended on it, and made it through. It was one of the most satisfying things I've ever done in my life.
Would you do another?
Well, people were like, are you doing it this year? I was like, I finished it, one and done. But I am taking swimming lessons to become more confident in my swim. People are telling me, yeah, you say you're not going to do it.
Yeah, I think you would do it. Stop. Come on to the dark side. I call it triathlon.
Girl, I don't know about that. I don't know. We'll see.
If I can do it, you can do it. I ain't learned how to swim till 2017, really. I freak out. Sometimes I have to come to Jesus moment. But, you can do it.
So you've done some?
Yeah, I've done a lot. Since at 17, I learned how to swim. 18 was my first year of trying, I should say. I did 2 sprints, an Olympic, and a half.
Are you kidding me? You did a half Ironman?
And then 19, I did a full. But the swim was canceled. But I was prepared to swim.
You did a full Ironman?
Yes, 20. I was supposed to do a few more, but COVID and 2 knee surgeries, so I've been kind of out of it. So next year is my year.
Girl, if I did a super sprint, like just a regular freestyle swimming, not the backstroke, that would be my first hurdle. So I am taking swimming lessons this winter.
Okay, come on. I know you like a challenge.
Okay,
you do. You like a challenge.
My current challenge is these 50 states halves.
Okay, so what's on your bucket list? other than the 50 state halves.
Yep, I'm currently working on 50 states half. And even though I've done 31 half marathons, I've only done 15 states.
Okay.
So I already have 5 states scheduled for the fall. I'm doing 3 in October, 1 in November, and 1 in December.
Okay.
And thinking about, as I was telling you, maybe half continents. I already have half marathons in South America and Africa.
Okay.
And obviously North America. So I only need, 4 more continents. And so thinking about, but I don't know, like we talked about that Antarctica thing.
Yeah. So Antarctica, I can do the other, but
yeah,
even though I've never been to Africa, but it's on my list. So.
Okay. Fantastic. And so what one of my friends said this weekend, I'm going to California to see her. And she's like, hey, Shauna, we're doing Grand Canyon rim to rim Labor Day weekend. Come and do that. No. Like you stop at the top, go down to the Grand Canyon, come back on. That's like a 2 or 3 day.
Yeah, it's nice. No, it'd be nice to go to the Grand Canyon, not to do the rim.
Right. Yeah, and I've been to the Grand Canyon. You're right, but yeah, I mean, I'm sort of getting into hiking. I kind of like that, so I'm going to hike up to the Hollywood sign this weekend. That should be nice. It's about a 3-hour hike. Yeah, that's happening in California.
Okay. So you do travel a lot.
Oh yes.
You got to get it in before school starts back. Huh?
Getting it in before school starts. I'm 47 countries in, ready to get out of the country again. But this past 3 summers, I've been driving around the U.S.
Oh, so you like to drive?
I didn't think I did, but then when COVID happened and I couldn't leave the country, I bought a national park pass. And in the summer of 2020, I drove 10,000 miles in 6 weeks. I went to 10 different states. Like
Where'd you
Montana,
go?
Wyoming, Idaho, South Dakota, Oregon. These are places I had never been.
So what did you do when you were there? I've been to some of those places skiing. Like I've been to Wyoming, Idaho. I want to go to Montana. They have a nice ski resort, yeah. But other than that, I don't know what it's there to do.
I met some friends in Idaho whom I had met at Boston Marathon, and they invited me to come.
Okay.
And I was like, y'all got me doing stuff I don't generally do, like whitewater rafting.
Oh, I've never done that.
Yes, I did that.
I want to do that.
Yes. And again, I was the only person who looked like me there, so I was teasing them like, what y'all got me doing here? But anyway, it was fantastic. Great.
I bet you did.
Be adventuresome.
Yeah, I bet you did. That sounds like fun. I want to do that. I really do. Because my godson went whitewater rafting. This was before COVID. He sent me a picture. He was like, I've done something you haven't. I was like, yeah, you have. You have, yeah. I'm like, yeah, you have.
So he had to find something. Yes, it was fun. It was fun. And you can go to the front of the raft, ride it like a Bronco or whatever.
Oh, really?
And so I did that. You have to hold on tight. And then in the calm part of the water, I got in the water and was floating down a river in Idaho. It was pretty cool.
Okay. Interesting. Part of my podcast is to have guests who've overcome obstacles to make it to their finish line. Can you tell me about an obstacle, whether it be running, professionally, or just in life that you've had to overcome?
Sure. I can take that from a couple different angles. I, like I said before, came from very humble beginnings. My mom even says, like, I didn't know anything about college because neither of my parents went to college. And so my mom's like, there must have been some innate sense that there was something else you needed to do in your life. And somehow through a couple teachers, my favorite math teacher, Mr. Moore, and counselors told me about programs like at Purdue and at MIT when I was in high school that I went to during the summer to kind of introduce me to engineering. So some way I knew that education was going to be my ticket out to have a different type of life than I experienced growing up. And then working in schools that are very different from the type of environment where I learned has also been, can sometimes be a bit of a challenge because sometimes people want their children to do really well and everybody is on the same page, wanting kids to be successful. But sometimes people are really looking for occasionally somebody to blame. And a lot of times the teacher is the person, right? And so you just have to, remain professional and you just have to come to terms that some people feel like everybody should earn an A and can earn an A and saying that it's okay if your kid doesn't have an A in math. I mean, it's a little easier because math is objective. And so I can show, it's either wrong or right? It's not like
yeah. Yeah.
And it's subjective, right? It's like this is wrong or right. So having the objectivity of my content is helpful, but it has been a challenge in some places. But again, like I said in that quote that you said, just take a deep breath, try to live my life authentically and honestly, decide that I will determine my fate and I will be successful. And you know what? Quite frankly, I'm trying to represent for my people.
Yeah. Yeah.
I have to do whatever necessary to do that.
That's true. So if a present day Shauna could go back and talk to your younger self, what advice would you give yourself?
My goodness. Wow. If a present day Shauna could go back to my younger self, I would tell my younger self who was in those math competitions feeling defeated even before I started that you can do this, you can be successful. Not only are you an excellent math student among the peers that you know, but you're capable of being an excellent math student with everybody, right? Not just with my classmates at Gary Roosevelt High School. I would also tell my younger self that those times when I had to struggle financially, when I was working like 3 jobs, when I was at Howard, that things are going to be all right later on. I know it's really hard now and eating ramen noodles and all that. But later, you'll be able to go to some really, nice restaurants and not really have to think about the bill, right? On the other hand, quite frankly, I think those struggles made me who I am today. It made me really appreciate the life that I live now. You know what I mean? So I don't know that I would trade any of those, but I would probably reassure myself that things would turn out okay in the end.
That's good advice.
Thank you.
Any last minute words of advice for my listeners?
As I was saying in the Runner's World article, lots of time people will look at a person and make a snap judgment about what they can do, who they are, where their place is. Right. And I've seen it happening in some races like, wait, what? You've run 20 marathons? Because I don't have the stereotypical runner's body, but it's not up to anybody else. It's up to me, right? It's up to what you say you want to do. You are the person that determines that destiny. Nobody else. People may think they have the right to say what you can or can't do.
They don't.
I do.
That's one thing I love about running. You go to races and you look around and you see all the people out there, different sizes, different races. I mean, some people you can see them struggling, but it's like we all out here.
We all out here.
Yeah.
We all out here covering the same.
Yeah.
Right. May take some of us longer, but we're still getting it done. And some people say they even admire people. I'm not trying to get people to admire me, but they're like people that are, like people getting the marathon done in like 3 hours. And then you got other people out there for like 6. They were like, I admire those people. They're out there double the time I was out there. Right. You have to have some perseverance.
You really do. Makes you a stronger person so you can have perseverance in other aspects of your life.
Yes, exactly. Carries on over into all aspects of our lives.
So where can people find you if you want to be found?
So my Instagram is Shaping Shauna.
Okay.
Yep, Shaping Shauna. And I am starting up a blog. It's similar. The name is Shaping Shauna at Blogspot. I think that's the name. I'm doing it from memory. And then Shauna Anderson on Facebook.
So what's your blog about? Running?
Actually, the blog is about running, but when I started it a while ago and I need to do some updates on it, it's my continuing quest to become my healthiest self in terms of my weight.
Okay.
Yes,
okay.
That's something I'm still working on.
I think we all are.
Yes, and I talk about that, and I do updates occasionally on Instagram about that.
Okay. Well, I thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to join me today.
I'm so honored that you invited me. I really, really appreciate it. I've learned a lot about you, and I look forward to talking to you again soon to hear about your experiences and adventures. And I'll be listening to the podcast. All of them.
Thank you. Okay. That wraps up this episode of Running is Cheaper Than Therapy podcast. Thank you for tuning in. If you already haven't, please download Running is Cheaper Than Therapy podcast on Apple, Spotify, or however you listen to your favorite podcast. If you have any questions, concerns, or possible show topics, please email Run It Is Cheaper Than Therapy, OLB, Omaha Love Brown. Again, that's Run It Is Cheaper Than Therapy, Omaha Love Brown @gmail.com. I also can be reached via Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and YouTube. Handle We Life, We Love. OUI Life, OUI Love. Thank you, and please tune in again.